So today I'm going to teach you guys how to become Maleficent from the original Sleeping Beauty in all her green evil glory, because she's amazing and I love her, but also because she will allow me to teach a bunch of different techniques over this tutorial that you can use for other costumes that you might want to be doing. So this tutorial will be for beginners to intermediates. It's not going to be too difficult, and I'm going to try and keep all the products very easy to find and easily accessible. We're going to be covering body painting, eyebrow blocking, contouring, eyeshadow and beauty makeup, and also how to use false eyelashes. I have a list. Yes, I made a list. So we've got a lot of stuff we have to cover in a short amount of time, so let's just get started. Whenever I'm designing a look for a makeup, I'll always make a face chart and just draw it out on paper so I can see what it's going to look like. So this is the one I did for Maleficent, and this is the one we're going to be following today. So the first thing I'm going to do is prep my hair because it's going to be under a headpiece. The reason I'm showing you guys this part is because sometimes people get a bit overwhelmed if they have a lot of hair or they don't know what to do with their hair under wigs and headpieces. I don't have a lot of hair, so I don't have to worry about too much, especially because I have half of my hair right now. If you do have thick hair, then I would recommend putting it into 2 braids and then you wrap them together around the back of your head before putting on a wig cap. I'm just going to do a single braid and wrap that, and then I'll be able to put a wig cap onto that to keep it all in place. So I'm just going to braid my hair. I'm just doing a normal braid. There are plenty of tutorials for braids online if you have never done one before, but once you get the hang of them, they are very easy. So I'm just going to skip through this part so we can get to the actual makeup portion of this video. So once I have my braid, all I'm doing is I'm just going to wrap it around itself. Use a clip like one of these guys because bow pins don't really like headpieces and sometimes they can grab your wig, but you can use them in a pinch if you don't have anything else. And then I'm just pinning it in place because I only need one with my amount of hair, but if I can turn around, you can see it's just in a nice little circle. And then just for some extra security, I'm taking a wig cap and I'm going to put that on. I like to put these on before I do the rest of my makeup because they're not fun when you've already got all your makeup on. Prepare to look a bit weird until you're finished. If you want with your wig cap, you can take this bit that's like an open kind of circle and you can kind of spin it and pin that in. I don't need to worry about that because I have a full headpiece, but if you have a wig or a lot of hair, you might want to add that extra security. Next up is something specific for this makeup, and it is the headpiece. We need to try this on before we start anything because we need to know where this headpiece will be sitting so that we can actually make our eyebrows match it. My headpiece is actually 2 components on this. The covering, almost like a boot cover, but it's for the headpiece, and then this part. The back is a Velcro. I made this as just a head covering because originally I just bought this headpiece. Well, I'll show you. My bit comes undone, comes over like that, and I made it that way so that I could get it over my face so I could do my makeup and then put this on. Pulls it over like pants, and then we've got a headpiece, and we've got the original headpiece that I literally bought off eBay for $12. So I made this and I bought this and then I put them together to make the old school Maleficent. But I can also use this when I decide to do Angelina Jolie Maleficent. So now with my sleeve on top of it, I'm just going to put this on. So now that we have the headpiece on the way that we want it, we are going to mark out where these sit because we don't want our eyebrows we're going to be putting in to disappear behind the headpiece. I don't have a lot of forehead left once this is on, as we can see, so it's going to be really important that I make it match up properly with the headpiece. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a green eyeshadow, doesn't matter what, because you're going to not be able to see it once the paint is on, but just enough that when you come to do the eyebrows, you'll know where they need to go. So I'm just going to do a dot just above where that is, and then just kind of put in roughly where this is going to go. And because it's in a green eyeshadow, you're not going to see it once everything is finished. So just outlining the points and coming down past the eyebrows, so you know where you're going to go. So now we can take this off and look real silly, but now we have a really good mark for where our headpiece is going to sit. And we'll put this to the side. Now that we have these lines mapped out, we know roughly where our new eyebrows are going to go and where they can't go past. But before we can even think about the new eyebrows, we have to get rid of the old ones. So that's where eyebrow blocking comes in. So for eyebrow blocking, first we're going to clean off our eyebrows with some witch hazel or just any kind of skin astringent, and clean it off from all the oils or any moisturizers or anything that we have, just so that the glue grabs directly onto our skin. And yes, you are going to look really stupid for a while with your hairnet and your silly lines, but better than something going wrong later on. So I'm going back and forth across the brows because you want to get all the oils out from between the brows as well. And then you just want that astringent to dry. At this point I'll also grab one of these little something or others, I don't know what they are. It's like a comb with a brush on the other end. As long as you have any kind of little brush or even like a clean spoolie, or rather a mascara wand, you can use that as well. But what I'll do is I'm just going to brush all of my hairs towards the middle of my face, just so that they're not lying against my head, in preparation for glue. So to make this tutorial as before it sets, I'm just going to pushing them down so that they're actually against my skin. While that one is setting, I'm going to do the same on the other side. If you need more information about brow blocking, there are plenty of really good tutorials on YouTube. This is not going to be an in-depth brow blocking tutorial, but should hopefully give you a good idea about where to start. So now we have these weird upped brows. Once you can feel it's dry, we're going to grab just a standard colourless powder, any powders that you have, and I'm just taking a cotton round and I just want to press that into the brow. We're just making sure it's nice and flush with the skin, and then it's at this point I'll go in with a spatula and kind of try to cover up the bits that I feel like need a little bit more help. You're essentially just spackling into the hair, so you're filling in any bits that feel like they need a little bit more attention. And we do it again. We're pressing that powder into the face. Also, it's okay if it's not perfect because nothing is. But also, because we're going to be covering everything up later with various different eyeshadows, and we can kind of make things work no matter how it ends up looking. But with practice you can get it really good. If you have thicker brows, you're going to need a little bit more time and a little bit more practice, because it's very difficult when you have thick brows. But it is possible and it can be done. Or you could look into getting some of those brow blockers, because you can buy brow blockers and that's a lot easier. So now that we got our beautiful blocked down brows, we're going to put some colour on them to get rid of the blue to my brows, so that when we put the paint on top it should all be the same colour. So I'm just taking my Kryolan concealer wheel and I am grabbing the neutralized blue colour, which is kind of an orangey colour. Mix a little bit of the neutralized purple because I'm quite pale and sometimes the neutralized blue is a bit too much, but you end up with something like that. And I'm taking it on a little brush and we're going to press that into the brows, and we're going to try and only keep it on the bits that actually have blue in them, because we're just trying to get rid of those blue undertones. But what we're going to do is we're going to then take a foundation colour and we're just going to put a little bit on top of that. I'm just using Smashbox. You can use whatever foundation you want. And all I'm going to do is I'm just taking some of that ready colour off my brush, taking a little bit of the foundation colour, and we're going to try and just kind of press that on top and blend it out. Being very light. We don't want to remove the colour that's underneath. We're just trying to kind of bring the skin tones together. Again, the neutralizing thing is a drag queen technique, so if you want help with that, we'll look up some drag queen tutorials on YouTube. Trying not to get rid of the lines that we drew before, because we kind of need them. And then we're going to do what we did before, where we're going to take powder on a cotton pad and we're going to press that into it, making sure we don't lift up the colour underneath. So make sure you got lots of powder on that powder puff. Get more powder if you need it. If you want, you can also do this between the orange layer and this layer if you're worried about it coming off, but this doesn't have to be perfect because we're still putting more stuff on top. It just needs to look closer to your actual skin so that we can't see the blue tones. Now that you're covered in powder, just grab a fluffy brush and just kind of try to brush off the excess. And if there's still a couple little bits that you think are a little bit too blue, just go back in, add a little bit more colour onto them. And it's okay if it's not exactly the same as your skin tone, it just needs to not look like an eyebrow colour. That's the only goal. You know, I think my left one is looking better than my right one, but that's okay. You've heard they're not sisters. I mean, they are sisters, they're not twins. That is what we are. You've got a little bit that's not agreeing with you, load up your brush with more product so you can really and make sure that you kind of blend it underneath, because you don't want to just have a block of colour. You have to make sure that if there is colour, you really want to make sure that you've kind of gone around the edges so it doesn't just stop abruptly. If you were doing a look that required no eyebrows and you needed to make it skin coloured, then obviously spend as long as you need on this section. But we don't need to worry about that because we're putting more stuff on top of it. This may seem a bit weird to do this when you're going to put paint all over your entire head. And if you have like bleached eyebrows or really blonde eyebrows, then you can just skip the blocking out process all you want, but it can make a good amount of difference to the overall look if you don't have the colour of your eyebrows showing through your paint. Now is the part where I like to go and put my contact lenses in. I like to put mine in before I start doing any kind of major makeup, because I have a tendency to tear up when I put contacts in. If you're the same, I would recommend putting them in first. If you've never worn contacts before, make sure you practice putting them in, taking them out, wearing them around before you wear them. Don't just take them out of the case that you bought them in and put them straight in your eye. You have to let them soak. There's a lot of stuff with contact lenses. There's a lot of stuff with contact lenses, and I would recommend definitely finding some tutorials specifically on contact lenses, especially cosmetic ones, and always get your eyes checked before you wear any contact lenses. But I obviously have had everything checked out. I've worn contacts many times and I feel like they would be beneficial for this look. So today I'm going to be using some yellow contacts from Colourview, and I'm going to go wash my hands and pop those in, and then I'll be right back. Now we have some fun contact lenses. I have an astigmatism in my left eye, so if I look like I'm looking in two different directions, that's why. If you don't have that kind of issue, then your contacts will not do the same thing that mine do. So now that we have contacts in, we can finally start with the painting portion of this tutorial. So I've chosen to go with a global body art paint in a pearl lime green because I really like the way it shimmers, and I feel like Maleficent is a fancy lady. So what I like to do with my cake makeup is I like to give them a little bit of a spray with some Nye Liquiset, which is just a mixing liquid instead of just using water. Mixing liquid is really good if you like the longevity of the body paint. So I'll usually just give it a little spray. We just want to wet it. You never want to just pour water into the cake makeup because it doesn't actually like that. It doesn't like having a lot of stuff in it at once. You want to just keep it very light, and you'll be able to see there's a difference in consistency when you do it that way. I also like to mix my cake makeups with a foundation, so I'm using the same foundation that we did some of our brows in, and I'm going to put that into the lid, just a couple of pumps of that into the lid, and then I usually apply these kinds of makeups with a sponge. You can use a beauty blender that you don't like anymore. You can use those little triangle things you get from the pharmacy, the cheap ones. It doesn't matter. So if you're going to use one of the square ones, make sure you tear off all the sharp edges, because sharp edges are like killer for any makeup. You never want sharp edges unless you want someone to look at a sharp edge. So I usually just take my sponge in my thing. Now that it's been sitting for a bit, I'm going to give it another spray just to re-moisten. And take my sponge, I'm going to go into that some, so I get the colour, and then I'm also just going to take, we're going to mix it in. And the reason for that is because I really like the way that it blends when you mix it with a foundation. It also helps dilute the colour a little bit, so it's not quite so obnoxious. Also, the good thing about this makeup, we're only doing the face, so the neck you can wear whatever you want. And it's not going to get covered in paint. So let's try just putting a little bit, I know it came down about here, so let's put a little bit on the jawbone. It's a good place to start, and we'll see how it looks. So we can see that that colour's there, but not enough, which means I need to spray more into this thing, and we need to pick up some more colour with the sponge. Slight change of plans, because for some reason that colour's coming out very transparent and I'm not liking that as a base layer. So before I go in with that colour, I'm actually going to go in with this green. It's a lot brighter, but once we mix it with some foundation, it will take that down a notch. But we need a really good opaque kind of base layer. We can put that one on top because it's just not showing up. It's not bad, but it's not gonna hide anything underneath it. And I'm showing you my mistakes because everybody makes mistakes. There's no such thing as someone who just did something perfectly unless they've done it over and over and over again. I may know mostly what I'm doing. I like to think I know what I'm doing. Sometimes you just get products that don't want to agree with you. Sometimes you need to rethink. And the point is not to panic. The point is to make it work in whatever way you can. Because that's what happens at a con. If you go to a con and then you don't know why your makeup's not doing what it's supposed to do, you have to fix it. And you can't do anything about it. Stressing about it isn't going to do anything, is it? So, as you can see, that's very, very green. But it's okay, because once we do everything else to it, it also takes it down. We're also going to just be pearlescent green on top as well. I like using a sponge instead of a brush, because as long as you move fast, the coverage is really good and really fast. I'm also leaving my eyebrows for last because you want to treat them delicately, because you don't want to lift up all the brow coverage that you did before. So once you've got a layer on, and I can't stress this enough, don't just keep going over the same layer with your sponge because you'll start to lift it up. So there's a point where you have to stop with that and you have to move on to a brush instead. We're going to continue to do the brows. I'm going to do a quick once over with the sponge, I think, is what we're going to do. And it's just going to be, you don't want to lift up the stuff underneath. So just do a quick once over. Then bits that you need to fix up will come in with a brush, because we don't want to lift up anything. We don't want to touch things too much. So I'm just putting some of that colour onto here, and we're just going to try to fix it. We will powder it again. We love to powder, because when you powder, you're basically sealing that layer, so you can come back in and put another layer on top without lifting up the one underneath. So I'm now taking that original colour, and we're taking that same little concealer brush that we used before, and I'm just going it in the eyes, and I'm just going to pat it, because if you don't pat it, you often lift up the colour underneath. You don't want to swipe body paint, but you also don't want to do too much in the same spot, because then that's what happens. If it does that, let it dry and then come back to it afterwards. So you want to make sure that you've really loaded up your brush when you're doing this section, because as soon as you try to go on top of things that have already set, if you don't have enough paint and you're just touching them with a wet brush, you will reactivate them. So as you can see, there's now some shine happening, which is what we want, but we need to make sure we're strategic with that shine. It's at this point that you can grab a little sponge if you want and really pick up some color, because that way you can go in and really quickly, don't stay in one spot for too long, like I said, and make sure you've really gone in. We can now go in and highlight Also around the eyes, don't worry about it too much. There's going to be so much eyeshadow, wouldn't worry about it. So we've got our sponge. I'm going to do the middle of my nose now. We're just trying to really highlight with this colour because it has a pearlescent nature to it, and we can see that now my nose has this shiny section. Jaw, chin, Cupid's bow. Cupid's bow is a really good one for bringing dimension to the face. And then we do the other side. Shininess also makes skin look more like your actual skin. If your skin is too matte, it will very often look like paint. I mean, obviously people know it's paint. You're not trying to trick anyone into thinking that you actually have green skin. But adding little extra things to it, more realistic in, you know, photos and things. So now we have a very green shiny face. And now's the time when we start to kind of bring that green down by using powders and contouring. If you want, you can go in and contour in with paints. I'll usually go in with a black, just a black body paint, and go in and then go on top of that with the original colour. But sometimes you run the risk of it taking up the colour underneath, so you have to be really careful if you're going to do it that way. You can also do it in cream paints. A lot of people like cream paints. Usually drag makeup is done in creams. I prefer to use water-based because water-based lasts longer on my skin. You might find that for your skin, the cream-based stuff is actually better because when you powder it down, it's a lot easier to blend. And then once you've like sealed it and powdered it and then you have it last for the whole day, I find that I start to crease, especially under the eyes and stuff. So I usually stick to water-based stuff because then I know it's going to stay for pretty much a whole day once I've powdered and sprayed the whole thing, and then walk out the door and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. That's my goal with my makeup. I don't want to have to touch it again once it is done. Just for an illustration, we are going to try and do a little bit of a contour. So it's your choice if you want to use a sponge or a brush. I think that I'm going to use a brush so that I can kind of give it that more cut look. I'm going to try using this square looking dude. We've sprayed the black like before. Black is really good body paint wise because generally it will pick it up no problem, unlike the ones that are kind of semi-opaque. That was fun. But you don't want to have too much, so make sure you're scraping off the excess because I don't want, and I've got my sponge with the original colour ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to find, if you want to know what your contour is, you know, the fish face stuff, where you just, generally you've got your ear and you just kind of want to bring it kind of below there. Should be kind of like a line almost. From there to there, but they usually go like this and then down into the mouth. Just look at how the light hits your face basically, and you don't want to start where the contour is, you want to start slightly below it because shadows don't start at the top of something, they start either midway or underneath it. So if you bring it up too high, then your contour looks a bit funny. My highlight is up here on top of my cheekbone, and then there's like a mid section, and then I'm going to start down here because then I got to blend up as well. I'm going to put on some black, like that, and then before it dries, we're taking the original guy and I'm going to we've got black. In this case you can get away with it being really black because you know that your headpiece is going to be really black, but then we can take more of that original color to dilute it. I'm just gonna go in here and just bring that darkness back in just at the top. She's a very pointy lady, so I feel like we can get away with a lot of craziness in this time. You always want to do exactly what you did on one side immediately to the other side so you don't mess it up and you don't forget what you did. Now if you're feeling game, you can also do the jaw. Sometimes the jaw is a good place to start as well. It's less noticeable than your cheekbones. Paint some in, and then before it sets, you want to stay underneath the jawbone, and then you want to take it across because it's going to travel. She also has quite a pointy chin, so I'm actually going to bring this right here. I'm going to bring it up to kind of almost match that just by doing a little bit of bouncing up towards that line. We're just tricking the eye into thinking that that's the shape of our face. Another thing, you want to try and keep this section here to be pretty clean and like keep it the same color as your highlight color, because that's how you bring the illusion of the cheekbones coming in and the jaw comes out and then the actual angle of the jaw. So to keep that going, I'm taking our shiny color again and I'm just going across that jawline so that when the light hits it, we have a dramatic shine. Can you see that? No? That's okay. Now, if you're feeling really game, you can try contouring out your nose in the same way. However, I feel a lot more confident in powders. I feel like they're more forgiving. So in this tutorial, we're just going to stop there with that and we're going to go into the rest of it in powders. Starting with the powders, we're going to be doing some contouring first so we can see what our face needs to look like. We got over our eyebrows so we can put new eyebrows in because we want to bring the eyebrows up a lot higher than they are. The goal here is also to make that eyelid look a lot bigger, but we do that through a lot of strategic contouring. To map out, I'm going to take this green, just a dark green. Any dark green will work as long as you like it, I guess. So now you need to decide where your new eyebrow is going to go. So this is where our headpiece is, and if we look at the face chart from the original, we want the eyebrow to kind of follow that, don't we? I'm going to start around here, around where my eye is. We're going to make it nice and small and straight, and then the eyebrow is going to be quite high up. And then I'm bringing that colour down a little bit just so it's not so stark. So I'm going to look straight at myself and I can see where my natural lid is. I want it higher than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take that colour, draw in where we want that new lid. Taking a fluffier brush, I'm going to brush a little bit just around the outsides of the mouth. Again, this is all about making that cupid's bow look deeper. So you do the middle and then a little bit on either side. The lip is a big one. You always want to do the lip. So next we're taking the same green and we're putting it on a contour brush. And we're going to press that. Make sure we're pressing, not swiping, into the contours that we've already made. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to map out where I want these eyebrows to go, with the same green, because that way I can go over them in black afterwards. So from my drawing, I've gone like this. But now we can see what we're kind of going for. We've got our new lid and we've got our new brow. While I still have this colour, I'm going to do the one that I've done on my face chart under here, because that's going to make it look like my eye is bigger. What I want to do first over these lids is I'm actually going to use, weirdly enough, I'm going to take a little tiny bit of a lipstick. So these are from Inglot. I'm taking a little bit of lipstick. Technically this is just a cream paint. If you have a white cream paint, that's what I'm about to use. We're going to grab a new brush for this. I'm thinking a nice fluffy one. We're taking not a lot. We only need a tiny bit. I'm taking on the back of my hand as I do everything, and you want it to be just a little bit, and we're going to put that down kind of like a base over your entire new lid. We're also going to put a little bit of that underneath the eye. So now we're going to get another fluffy brush. We're going to take a little bit of white eyeshadow, any white eyeshadow, and first I'm going to take the original brush and I'm just getting rid of the crease. And then I'm taking that white eyeshadow and I'm going to pat that on top. We're going to take that brush, it's got a flat top, we're taking an even darker green, which is the green I originally drew these lines in with. We're going to now make things look a little bit more like an actual face. So I'm going to start with this eyelid situation. We're going to go for kind of, it's called a classic eye, where it's almost like a C shape through here. So I'm going to start here. And we're going to bring it up to that eyelid that we've made. We don't want to go above that eyelid because we're going to be doing stuff up there later. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to do this big brush, the fluffy one. I'm going to, again, every time you do something one place, you want to make sure you're doing it everywhere else as well. The bottom lip, most of it goes underneath and then a little bit on either side. And then same thing, we take that colour in on our contour brush. I'm gonna press it in there. And the other side. I'm now taking a fluffy brush again, and I'm going to take a lighter green colour. And I'm just pressing that into the sides of these eyes. I want to bring some of that green back in. Really trying to give this new eyelid some dimension. So I'm going to extend this a little bit further because I just want that to be really dramatic. I want it to really go up. And then if you want to just make sure, you can actually put some white on your finger if you want and just dab that right on the center. Sometimes using your finger, you can use whatever tools you need to. Now we're going to put a base down for the purple. I'm going to use this little brush, and I'm taking this purple out of the Venus palette because I just think it's so lovely. What we're going to do is we're going to press that above that green. You can also go in with a slightly smaller brush just to really press it in. Just gonna press that along the eyelid line. I'm leaving the top of that kind of semi-blank because we're actually gonna add in a lighter color afterwards. Make sure when you take the color, because of fallout, you take it and then you always give it a little tap. So we're actually going to take that white cream again, and we're just going to press that into the high point because you're trying to imagine how the face works. So your eyelid is here, and so there's going to be darkness through here, and then this is all up, so this is going to be darkness to lightness. You've got your new eyelid, which will go dark and then back out to light again. It's all about pretending where things are when they are not there. So now we're going to take some browns because we're going to add some more coolness to the face. So I'm going to be taking some browns out of here. This is a good cool brown. Taking an angled brush, so I'm going to take this cool kind of almost purple tone. We're going to press that into this lid. And I'm taking that same brown and I'm just going to kind of put it into the dark spots of my face. Taking our brush and we're going to contour that in. Okay, we're going to add a little bit more purple. So I'm going to take this purple here. I'm going to use a flat brush because I want to press that in. And we're tapping it and we're going upwards with it. Let us put a little bit of black, see if that will help really define these edges. So I'm going to take a little tiny skinny brush. We're going to take some black eyeshadow. Ironically, I have a Maleficent palette. And I'm just taking a black. And we're just going to outline all of these things and see if we can really bring that depth to them. We're taking a tiny bit of that black with our dark green and we're going to start just pressing that into the points that we want dark. And we're going to now go underneath the eye on top of the stuff we've already done. And again, that's going to get blended out a little bit. I'm going to use this brush here. Now to check on our illusion, I think it's time for some eyeliner. First things first is I'm going to use a eyeliner for my waterline. I'm just using one of these cheapo twisty boys where you woo! And I'm going to do my waterline. And if I need to pull down my face, the important thing is that you use a cotton round or something. Don't just put your finger straight on your face because you will take the paint with it. So you just pull it down. I really love the Stila liner. It's the Stay All Day Waterproof liner. So for drawing the eyebrows, this is what I'm going to be using. There's no real science to this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where they start. So according to my picture, I want them to start kind of low. So I'm going to start them here. I'm going to draw a dot on each side. Do a dot on each side so we know where they start. And then because we've already drawn in roughly the shape, we're just going to go for it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go for it. let's get an actual eyeliner on. So now we've got a problem, and the problem is that these two are in different spots, and I actually like the second one more than I like the first one. My plan here is to do a double wing instead, so I can match them. Oof, we have some big eyes now, don't we? I'm gonna put a little bit of black in through here, just so that it looks a lot more deep. Does it need to be precise? Because we're then gonna go in and blend a little bit. And I'm taking black and I'm just pressing it into that new crease I've made. Eyelashes. I'm just using a standard pair that you can get at the chemist because they're the easiest one for anyone to get. What you're gonna do, first up, you take the lash and you gotta give it a good old bend. If it's really not bending, then take a pair of scissors and you want to curl it really gently like you would a ribbon. Then, before you put any glue on it, you need to first check which one it is, because I usually have a long side and a short side. You want to measure it on your eye. For me, these are always too long, and they're usually too long for most people, so I will take off a chunk, probably like that much. I'm just literally gonna snip that end bit off. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the small bit and I'm actually gonna glue it to the outer bit of the lashes so that it's double thick. I'm gonna use the glue that just comes with the kit. It usually contains latex though, so if you are allergic to latex, do not use the adhesive that comes with it. You want to get there's a duo glue that doesn't have any latex in it. So I'm taking the little lash that I cut off, putting a little bit. You never want to go crazy with this glue, you just put enough that you can have a thin strip. And then you shake it like a Polaroid picture, so that I'm just going to stick it on the other one. So we're going to glue these on. We're taking our little glue stick thing, thin layer across the entire thing, except for at the ends. The ends should always have the thickest amount of glue, because the middle will hang on as long as those end bits do. So you need to make sure that you've got a nice dollop on each end. This is one of those things where it's really up to personal preference, but generally putting them on with tweezers is the best way to do it. I have always done it with my fingers because I forget to bring tweezers with me to cons, and I usually just try to line them up on the ends first, because as long as you've measured them, then they will stick, and then I will clasp my lashes and the fake lashes together and push slightly against my skin just to make sure that it's properly on, and then you can give them a little bit of a zhuzh, and then you can see them from side on. Now we need to put mascara on to bring those together. I'm using this Smashbox stuff. It's my favorite mascara at the moment. And the eyes are looking pretty good. Now, I think we're up to the final stage. Oh my god. My opinion on lips for cosplay is I do not like to use... I don't really like lipstick. I don't like the fact that if I touch my face, I'll smear it, so I don't use lipstick. There's a couple of different options I have for lipstick, well, as an alternative to lipstick. If I'm doing anything that has like a dark lip, I will use the same eyeliner I use for the eyebrows and put that all over my lips. Red lips are trickier because red stains really bad, and red generally is a difficult color to get in like an eyeliner. So instead, I'm going for a lip liner. This is a Lime Crime Velveteen lip liner. Then I will fake the look of it being really shiny. Starting with the lip liner, I'm going to draw in her beautiful red lips. Now she's got quite a long pointy mouth, so we might add a little bit of extra on the sides. I'm going to take the lip liner and I'm going to actually take a brush, taking a little tiny brush. I'm going to pick that up and we're going to draw it. So once you've got your general shape in, Then we're going to switch over to a red eyeshadow. This is an actual lip brush. We're going to go in and we're going to both set it and shape it more, I guess. Next, we're going to just put a little bit of a shape to this. I'm going to take that little brush again, and I'm going to take this dark brown that has a bit more of a red to it. The idea is just to give it depth. Then I'm going to take a little bit of black just on the outside. And then to really take it home, we need some white. So I'm just taking a teeny tiny brush and that white we've been using on everything, and suddenly you have a shiny lip that's not shiny at all. We have pretty much done everything we set out to do, so I guess it's time for me to put my headpiece back on. How exciting! Okay, headpiece is going back on. We finished the look and the eyebrows are in the perfect position. What do we think? Thank you for joining me, friends, on this journey of greenness. I admit, I think this might be a little bit more green than what I thought it was going to end up being, but I don't hate it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't hate it. I hope that this tutorial was helpful in some way. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that maybe you learned something. I think this probably took about 2 to 3 hours to do properly from start to finish, but if you do have any questions, feel free to send me messages on Facebook or Instagram. It's just Soylent Cosplay on both. Look at my hands, it's so weird with the face paint. Right, final tips are, if you were going to do this for a con, I would highly suggest that you also use a setting spray afterwards. But yeah, finishing up, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for following me on this journey. I hope it wasn't too much or too boring. And yeah, message me if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll see you guys around the interwebs. Okay, I will see you later. Bye!